blog that basically I embed YouTube code into, and also do blog posts that I earn revenue off of. And then I have a community that's now up to about 2,000 members in about 2 months. So those are the three things that come together for my business.
You got groupies? Do you have a cult following?
What did I call it when I was on vacation? Creepy cool. Yes. No, it's cool, but it's creepy too.
Your wife is like, this is creeping me out.
No, she just kind of laughs at it.
What's your YouTube personality?
Yeah.
What is it?
Eli, the computer guy.
What are you talking about?
Basically, technology and computers and business. Essentially, how do you make money off of doing all this stuff?
You stream 9 a.m. on Eastern, because I've listened in. And actually just put it on the background, and it's in a bizarre way appealing, like you were telling me about. We'll talk about that in a second. Nick.
I am the founder of a local company called Parking Panda. If you're not familiar with us, what we do is allow drivers to go online or on their mobile phone and buy and reserve parking spaces in advance. The idea being, you know exactly where you're going, what you're paying, you have a guaranteed spot when you get there. On the other side, we do still operate much like Airbnb in some ways, where a private homeowner can list their space for rent and earn cash. But a lot of what we do is also now yield optimization and for parking garages. So driving traffic at a lower price when they're empty, selling reservations at a higher price when they're selling out, pushing parking in the direction of airlines and hotels ultimately to sort of optimize the industry.
So when you guys first started out, who were your customers, or what did you know about your customers at the onset when this thing was first?
Sure.
So when you went to Startup Weekend last year, what did you know? Or
Yeah, so from the sort of driver end, our customer base is pretty wide. It's wider than a lot of people. It's really, and in many ways still is, anyone who drives into the city and needs parking, or across the city and needs parking. Now we've learned, who's more likely to use than not, but that's still overall, our general user. On the other side, it was a little more narrow. It's anyone who owned a parking space or rented and had a parking space, but could and had the capacity to rent it out. So underused it, had a street permit, didn't have a car, whatever it might be. But someone with call it an underused available parking space.
so you really actually have a two-sided platform, right? So customers are the ones that pay you. So the people that looking for parking pay, and the people that want to give up the parking pay you as well.
So the people that list their it's free to list your parking space on our site. When something is purchased through us, we just take a percentage of the purchase price.
What were your first customers?
My first this entire business got thrown in the trash heap actually after about a year and a half. It initially didn't make any money. I originally created the business in the end of '09, I guess. And the idea was to do online video classes that taught people how we make money, because I did really well all the way up until the recession hit. And I was I actually was going to go back and get my PhD in information technology until I was sitting at the university and realized it was just horrible education. It was just pointless. And so my idea at the time was I wanted to do all these video classes online, stream them out, and charge like $25 a month for these classes. And that completely, utterly failed. I got 1,000 free members on my site, because I figure if I get up to 1,000 members and I'm streaming out decent video, then I can switch them over to $25 a month. I went from 1,000 members streaming out 31 to 32 hours of video a day to when I switched over to $25 a month. After a month and a half, I wiped out my entire user base and was streaming out 15 minutes worth a day.
That's quite a lesson.
That was horrible. So basically, the irony for any startup company, this is truly the irony of any startup company, I really did throw this entire business away. This was done. Last January, I was throwing it on the trash heap when YouTube contacted me and said, because all my videos are long form content, they're anywhere between 30 to 90 minutes long. So they contacted me and said, since you don't have any copyright violations, you can put up long form videos if you want to. So I was taking down my servers. I said, What the hell, throw this crap onto YouTube, at least it's up there.
How many hours are we talking about?
Hours worth, so 70 videos, so 48 to 60 hours for videos.
And you're wearing an orange t-shirt and all of them, right?
I just about some of them I do.
I'm disappointed in you today, but I'm wearing one.
Alright.
Eli, you'll see him in all events, will have the same orange t-shirt. That's part of the brand, isn't it?
So no, I threw it onto to YouTube, and then August of last year they offered me monetization, and then since then I've been making pretty good money. Been going up and up and up and up and up.
So who are your customers? What do you know about your customers today?
What I know about my customers today, or I guess I would call them my fans. So I make all my revenue through ad revenue. Nobody pays me a dime out of pocket. That doesn't work. Yeah, I mean they're across. I actually have all the stats of demographics and all that. Essentially, they're people. They're beginning level professionals. They're anywhere from 18-year-olds who want to get into computers and technology up to 50-year-olds who are transitioning in their careers. But basically, my fan base is the people that are professional enough, they've decided on the computer path, and now they're trying to figure out what the hell they're doing. And it really is a cross of everything from literally from 14-year-olds to 50-year-olds, but they're all.
And the ones that were watching for free, what do you know about them? The ones that bailed when you started charging. You know anything about them?
Yeah.
I didn't know much about them.
I figure they probably run about the same stats as I have.
So what do you know about your customers today?
So we still have a pretty diverse set of users, especially on the reservation side, people that book parking. They overall skew, it's interesting. So the people that pre-book, we found a shocking number of people don't book parking the day of, but book it sort of 1 to 4 days out. And that demographic skews much older, 30, 35 plus. The demographic that books same day or especially books via the iPhone skews much lower, 18 to 35. So the real-time reservations for us are a much younger, it makes sense obviously, you see it, tech-savvy demographic generally. And the people pre-planning are the older generation, the people that we found tend to live in the suburbs, tend to have multiple kids, and are literally commuting into the city for something very specific, and are actually, this is something we found from user testing, not from analytics, but terrified of parking in the city. We have people, I have reservations into next January and February for parking spaces.
Like grandmother? Or?
Yeah, of older people just, someone asked me to get them a reservation for next summer the other day. I was like, you might need to come back in a few months, so I actually know what I have available. But people that are actually terrified of parking in the city. So like I said, iPhone and our mobile reservations, very different demographic that are sort of pre-booked advanced reservations.
What information do you have about your customers and how do you get it? I mean, is that from billing? I guess you can get the address, zip code.
Sure. Anyone that books or actually pays, we have their zip code so we know where they are. When you sign up with us, we only require sort of your name, email, and we ask for your phone number, so we can sort of deduce your location from your phone number. There are also some really interesting, call it somewhat shady, companies out there. A company called Rapleaf that lets you feed your customers' email addresses through and spits back all that demographic data that was probably tracked through advertising somewhere. So their geo,
That's how you get the age 10?
Their age, right, their income level, all that stuff that was probably tracked by someone else, they then aggregate and sell back for your customers, so you can run your emails through it and get that. So we look at that occasionally as well. Just like I said, because it's so broad, we don't have to be super specific, but it's good to have a general idea of who you're building for.
What do you know about your folks, your customers? Do you know as much as he does about his?
Probably not, because nobody actually. You don't actually buy anything from me. So I have 3 different analytics systems. So I have the analytics system for the community, the analytics system for Everyman IT, and then the analytics systems for YouTube.
Can you go over each one? So YouTube's a regular YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And what is the community?
So the community, it looks like a faux Facebook. I use something called PHP Fox, and so the community allows you can have friends, you can create pages, you can do a forum. Basically, it creates its own little Facebook group so everybody can have conversations. It even, I bought a special module for it so people can even do voice and video chat. So
is there a URL for the community?
Yeah, if you go to EliTheComputerGuy.com and then select the forum link, you'll go there.
And what's the third element?
So there's that, and then there's everymanit.com, which is basically a WordPress site. Basically, it has blog posts and videos embedded onto it, and then there's the YouTube channel. So with the community and the Everyman IT, the WordPress site, I can use Google Analytics. So I can get fairly specific on the things like locations, time on site, how they actually use the site, but I can't get a lot of information about the people in particular. Although the community, technically they do have to register and give some information. When you see that a lot of people are 140 years old, you realize they don't give you good information. With YouTube is nice, they don't give as defined information about how people would use the content, but they do give you information about the users themselves. So like I know that 93% of my users are male, 7% are female. Like one of the interesting things is if you look at my stats for over the last month, my viewership in like the U.S. skews higher than in age than the age of my viewers in India. So like the 45 to 54-year-olds are actually 32% of my viewership in the U.S., whereas in India, 33% of my viewers are 25 to 34-year-olds.
For the same content.
For the exact same content.
So, I mean, one of the things I enjoy from Sam's presentation is there's almost an infinite amount of stuff you can gather.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of it is not really useful. To you, what is the most important thing you'd like to know about your customers? Or top two, things that are important to you to track and
About them?
yeah, I mean, what is most important to you to know that you need to know about your customers? I mean, you just track what? I mean, if fewer people watch, your revenue drops, right?
Yeah.
So you're focused on that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that triggers red flags for you, basically. That's
Yeah,
like-
I look at viewerships. I guess the numbers I look at are things like I would say so. Like with my two sites with EverymanIT.com and the community. So EverymanIT, this part. So what I look at is I continue to have over 50% return visitors. So it's actually like 55% return visitors and almost 5 minutes time on site.
So you're addicting.
What's that?
You're addicting.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's why I look at like the community. So yeah, I guess those are the two numbers I look at. I look at repeat visitors and time on site. Because like with the community, it's almost 70% return visitors with almost a 10-minute average time on site. So you figure that's an average time of site on 7,000 visits.
Is there anything you want to measure that you can't today? Is there something you want to know about your customers and their behavior that you just don't know how to figure out, or you're pretty satisfied with?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, oddly enough, because they're both Google products, this is what I complain about Google, is they don't merge enough their products. So I wish I could get my Google Analytics stats from YouTube, because on YouTube I've got almost 40,000 subscribers and like 4 million views. So if I could get the same time on site for my channel that I get for my site, that would be very useful.
So Unix. So what is the most important measures that
Yeah.
are really important to you guys?
It's not, while it's useful for us to know things like age and gender, it's not that important. It's more important things for us. I mean, repeat purchases are obviously important in the percentage we're doing that, but something that's sort of less quantifiable is why people purchase, why they pre-book or why they book with their phone, and then where they book from, a lot of our business deep links in, whether it's from SEO, whether it's a paid advertising campaign, if it's a partnership that directed them to us, where they came from is probably the most important thing to us, actually.
Do you track landlines versus cell phones? Do you know? I'm sorry, from a desktop computer versus a mobile phone?
Yes, we know if you bought from, obviously we know if you bought from a desktop, if you get what browser you bought from, et cetera, what version of that browser you bought from. We know if you bought from an iPhone, from our app, if you bought from our mobile web, you can track all of that.
Is there something you'd like to know that you can't know yet, or you don't know how to?
It's pretty extensive, but like I said, it's. I wish we could better quantify the stuff that isn't quantifiable, or I wish we did a better job of doing it. Maybe, understanding the psyche behind this demographic purchases for this reason and purchase this far out because, just a deeper dive into our analytics. But other than that, I mean, most of it's out there, it's just a matter of using it properly.
Can you predict if there's a football game on, based on like, based on purchasing behavior? Can you figure out something on there?
Yeah, so, I mean, we try not to, we try to predict in advance what's going to happen, right? Like, we use APIs, we use like SeatGeek's API to pull down every event that's going to happen in every city that we're in over the next year. So we already know that, so that we can actually target our, whether we should do a CPC campaign for it, whether we should, build SEO pages for specific large events, whether we should reach out and try to actually partner with the event. Actually knowing all that in advance drives traffic down the line.
I think let's just open up for questions now. What questions do you guys have?
It seems like both of you guys might want to know from your users information that is more useful for product enhancement, product improvement, than for marketing at this stage, at least at this stage for your business. In your business, it's content. It seems to me you want to know what kind of content they're looking for, right?
Oh my God, yeah. I always say, God bless criticism. At the end of the day, though, like I said, one of my stats here, I get almost 5,000 comments a month just off of YouTube. So all of my fans and followers, they are very vocal. What they like, what they dislike. And the funny part is, you'll actually see like one person say, I love this about your video, and the exact next comment is, I hated the exact same thing about your video. So I get just plenty of feedback from my fans. And it's actually one thing to think about with you guys is, I know criticism can be painful as hell. I mean, oh my God, some of the stuff that I get every day. But the way I look at it is these people actually do care enough to even give the criticism. So even if it's a little blunt, it's a little rude, even if they really should have thought twice about putting it out there, the fact that they put it out there and a lot of the stuff that they say, again, sometimes it can be rude as hell, but there's a nugget of what they're saying. Between the F you stupid dumbass, there will actually be something you go, hey, you know what, that one video, yeah, that was
So
wrong.
since you realize, these people are in fact our users, they're not customers, they're not paying you money.
Yeah.
So if a customer complains, for you it matters, right? Because there's a direct connection with dollar, but there it's not. So
Yeah.
how do you manage that? I mean, you can blow them off, but how much damage can you do before you see a blip on the revenue on the ad? And I don't ask you to figure it out, but I mean, what's your sense?
Well, what I have to do is it's more like surfing. I mean, you have to think that every day at this point I get 14,000 video views just on the YouTube videos. I get about 3,000 views on my Everyman IT page, and then however many views on the community. So it's more like surfing. Like if I totally piss off a couple of customers. I might lose 100 views in a day, but I might also gain 500 the exact same time, so it's difficult to monitor.
Do you have leverage with Google based on the number of views you have to like set floors for the ad serve of your content? Or is do you have no authority?
Google.
How are they determining that your content, your page is valued more than someone else's page? Is it based on
honestly, that's a funny thing with Google. That's why I never talk to my family about it.
Right.
No, because it's all you put the code on the page, and then you just smile and take what you get. I mean, I get all the AdSense numbers, and I see what my RPM is, my revenue per 1,000 views,
Right.
and it keeps going up, and it's a very, very nice amount. But
why is it going up though?
it's a very good question. Have you ever tried talking to Google? Google,
Yeah, I mean, they're a lot of fun.
No, I mean,
Basically,
basically,
you can't say, I want to charge at least $1 CPM for my content.
I know some
Yes.
people that were in the content production business in the past on YouTube, and what they saw, and this is obviously all off the cuff, like what their personal experience, same way, but the more viewers you got, the more sort of high-end or premium advertisers Google will get you, and therefore the higher revenue per 1,000 you will get.
Right.
It's basically just like this person gets the most views, so we're gonna serve the most expensive ads, so they're gonna make the most money.
Right.
And trickle down to the lowest person who gets the ads that are for some like Indian energy drink that nobody cares about.
Right.
But you can't reverse engineer, I guess.
Well, yeah, no, like I said, Google doesn't tell you. Basically, Google is a pure take it or leave it. But that's the one thing that's been nice with Google, though, is Google seems to really be an ecosystem that, like with YouTube, the more you support YouTube, the more YouTube supports you. I mean, they just send a tremendous amount of traffic to my videos. And like I said, it's not just that the number of viewers go up, but that for the past year, the revenue per 1,000 views keeps going up on the same angle, so.
But just like they send it your way, they could just take them away and you would never know. Or why?
Oh, you would know, yeah, I know.
After, you know, you were about to scrap that business and they're like, not so fast, what are we gonna do next?
I actually went back to consulting last year. Yeah, trying to figure out what my next thing was going to be.
Also
Yeah.
raise corgis, right?
What's that?
You raise corgis. You don't raise
I
it.
don't.
You only a couple. Got a great fishing pond in the backyard. Park,
Because
you
you
know,
kind of
like
have,
fishing.
you kind of have like an interesting niche, like similar to like a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, you basically own your occupation because once you stop doing your occupation, your videos,
Yeah.
your business, it's not done, but it's not gonna keep moving forward the way it was if you're still a practicing lawyer or not.
Well, the nice part though with YouTube, with this whole system, is I'm sure there's a downward trend, but I'm not sure where it is. Like interestingly enough, I hope this doesn't say anything bad about me, but my highest revenue days have actually been while I was on vacation. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Well, Eli, how many hours a week would you say you spend on this stuff?
I don't know, 10, 15, I guess.
And how much of that is actual developing the content and how much of it is running the business?
It's almost no running the business. I mean, that's the thing where Google really gets you in there because all of their systems just run it. So I don't have I have one dedicated server that I have to reboot every once in a while. But their ad system just runs. I get it once a month. So basically, all I have to do is create content. Like I said, I mean, the biggest problem I've had is when GoDaddy's DNS was whacking, doing all this stuff last week. It corrupted a database that runs my community. But I mean, I hit repair. It was back up and running. That's really all.
Since you have such a live channel communication with your users, have you ever, I mean, you take feedback from them and tweak something, and have you ever noticed, does it have an impact or it's not?
Yeah, like so when I do the live shows, like people didn't like the lighting at first, and they didn't like certain things. Like I had, since I used to run my business and I had a lot of employees, I had a lot of like wall-mounted screens that were just sitting collecting dust. So I decided to use them as part of my backdrop. I actually screwed them in the wall and then set them up for a computer, and it was just having like a screensaver go back and forth. And then my member said, "Let's make this easy."
So I mean, yeah, Nick learned some interesting things about people and when they buy parking. So what have you learned from about humanity and people?
Christmas is brutal. Because last year, because the numbers were going up from August, and I wasn't making a lot, but by December I was making about $500 a month. But I saw the growth curve, and I figured out where this could go. So that was when I shut down the consulting again. I went, okay, we can really do something with this. And then we walked into December, and I lost half my viewership went down by half that month. It was
Been on vacation?
yeah, but it's I mean, like if you guys do like any kind of web content or whatever, I mean, it wasn't a blip. It was I lost half my viewership for a month. It just tanked. Thankfully, about a week into.
You think it's a seasonal thing because they're out shopping or families and all this?
Well, yeah, because it's Christmas, so people aren't at work watching my videos. They're not at school watching my videos. They're traveling. They're doing all that.
Yeah, it's the same with weekends too. I mean, just, you know, impressions in general are a lot lower on weekend days versus weekday.
What kind of you see with parking demand?
Our traffic is, if you normalized our traffic, it's definitely much lower on weekends. I say that because lots of big events are on weekends. So, I mean, if you look at our traffic over a long trend, that you see that, but if you look on the Grand Prix week, then you'll see a massive spike on the weekends, or around football games, you'll see spikes and things like that. But that's certainly the case, and that's been the case when I ran when I was at the Big Social, and we had millions and millions of views, same thing, lower traffic on weekends. It's general rule that almost always happens.
So you started off with people and their driveways, but now the real money, right, is it the enterprise kind of the big parking structures?
Yeah,
Managing their inventory?
there's still a place for the private side of what we do. It helps in certain neighborhoods, right? Near Ravens MT Bank, there's lots of private driveways. We still rent a substantial number of driveways in that area. Parts of DC, look at Adams Morgan, still do really well in that. In Nob Hill in San Francisco. The issue is sort of twofold. One is it doesn't cover large chunks of the city that commercial operators do, and the ability to scale by adding one parking space at a time is really difficult. You need a lot of them, and those people are hard to reach. Like, how do you reach a private homeowner with a driveway? People aren't Googling, how do I sell my parking space? It's just not, it doesn't happen. Whereas the commercial parking industry is, just in the US, upwards of a $20 to $25 billion industry, not counting on-street parking. This is just like lots of garages, and it's one that is just starting to see new technology in the last 30 years, except for accepting credit cards. So there's a lot of room for optimization in that space, and that's both through our reservations and through the services we're providing on the back end, the garages and the optimization space. There's a huge potential for that just doesn't exist in the sort of peer-to-peer space alone.
Is there a customer segment that you want to reach, you just don't know how to, or apart from the going door to door from the driveways, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, that is a customer segment that I would love to reach more effectively. It is very difficult to reach. People who own driveways and would list them for money.
Do you think it is worth it? Is it worth going after?
Yeah, it is. There's some value in it converts really well for monthly parking. People love to rent like from their neighbors, like a couple houses down. They have a driveway, I don't. They have 2 cars, I don't. See it a lot here in Baltimore, actually, in Canton and Federal Hill and stuff like that. And it does, like I said, certain neighborhoods, it is more efficient, more effective. So there's definitely some value to it.
How are you guys going to try and reach out? Are you thinking of ways, or kind of things, or?
At this point, we largely do it organically because we've tried things in the past. We've tried local marketing that you see, people like Zipcar and get around doing.
Who has a driveway now?
There's a driveway in the city. That's the other thing. Right. Or near a venue or whatever it might be. It's really difficult. So most of ours, we had a bunch of press the other day. We got a huge spike in private spaces listed, and that tends to be how it goes. Everything else we've tried is not. You could dump as much money, and we found you could dump a lot of money into local marketing, flyering, things like that. Not substantial. It's hard to track, first of all, but the signups aren't substantial. So that said, it's just something we sort of let go organically while we build the other sides of our business. I mean, the commercial lots and garages are very much, it's a direct sales and BD process. It's standard, you know how it works. The customer, in terms of traffic side, is measurable, and we know how we can get traffic. We know we drive traffic through SEO. It's sort of, you'd be shocked how many people Google looking for parking, especially effective long-tail keywords, Verizon Central parking, Washington Capitals parking, things like that. We know that for high volume events, we can actually make money on pay-per-click advertising. We know that.
So you're going to open up those channels for extra revenue?
Yeah, so we do all those things. Like on a weekday, if I were to do CPC advertising, we do some of it, but we'll take a small loss on the things we do. I would never do Baltimore parking and run AdWords because it doesn't convert that well. So we pay and we don't get much. If I do National Aquarium parking, I'll probably lose a few dollars on a purchase. But Grand Prix parking, Preakness parking, things like that, I can actually make money on every purchase through pay-per-click advertising. And then, excuse me, and then a lot of our traffic comes from establishing distribution partnerships we were talking about in the back. We have a platform that allows us to do simple things from like affiliate links all the way up to API integrations that actually allow our parking inventory to be sold within the checkout process of another website. So you can be checking out.
Market.
Yeah, you can be checking out on a ticketing company, and if we have parking nearby, one click, our parking will be serviced for you to buy within their checkout process. And that's, especially in the long term, that leveraging these other massive marketplaces that are pre-existent to get distribution is by far the most cost.
So right now, what cities is Parking Panda in?
DC, Baltimore, and San Francisco. We just launched in San Francisco. A lot of people ask me why. It's not necessarily, I mean, San Francisco is a good market for what we're doing. It's not necessarily because it's more fruitful than, say, a Boston or a Philadelphia or something like that. We are, like it or not, a venture capital driven business. We make a lot of money at scale, not early on. I mean, we do make money. I can pay our rent and, pay things with the income that we have, but I can't support the kind of growth that we want or need. And in order to raise large amounts of venture capital, being in San Francisco is important. And actually having your VCs be able to go use your service and product and we're partnering with GetAround, another hot company that just raised $12 million. We're partnering with Eventbrite and all these people that all of this
Are you going to go
helps grow our
Hollywood?
business.
You're going to come too cool for us? You're going to start driving a Ferrari?
Yeah, one day I hope.
And the website is parkingpanda.com?
Yes.
It takes a lot of bamboo to feed a panda. So 93% men, 7% women.
Yep.
So, granted they're not customers or users, but so what are your thoughts about are you interested in kind of maybe going from 7% to 50%, or what do you try to do in that sense?
I would. The problem that I find in the technology field is, how do you put it? If you go to a lot of meetups, and this is the issue when you really talk about expanding and getting equality and technology and all that, is like if you go to a lot of meetups here, you have a lot of people that are talking, we need to have more females in the technology field. And when you go, great, what do you code in? They go, oh no, I'm human resources, or oh no, I'm marketing. All right. Yeah. And so there, I was in the Army. I went through electronics school. It was completely open to anybody as long as you had the right ASVAB score. And we had 220 males and 30 females. And so.
What about a woman co-host? Do you have a guest co-host?
I've thought about it. At some point when I decided to expand, I'm finally making a real salary off this, and so I'm getting to the point of actually being able to invest in the company based off that. So
what's the next step kind of view vision?
probably the next step is assistant. Again, the problem. I mean, I'm honest with all this. I'm not really sure, like, say, if like the female market, I'm not sure it matters.
Because your one measure that matters is basically how many views you get.
How many
Because
views.
that impacts, and you don't care if dogs are watching or whatever.
Exactly. So all I care about is the viewership, and I care about the interaction. So like if you go to my community, you will see that I have a couple of women on there out of 2,000 members. And again, I try to open it up to but yeah, it doesn't really matter.
How did it pick up in India? I mean, who seeded it? How?
Because the issue is, ironically, and this is what sends me up the wall every once in a while, is everybody wants to go into technology and make a lot of money. Ironically, nobody wants to spend money to get there. And so I think in India, the main issue is whatever garbage we hear in this country, they actually have a very poor education system over there, and so they're not getting very good education. So basically, they do have decent internet connections, so they can go there and they can watch the free video.
But they will not pay, or?
Yeah, and that's a horrible issue. You get into this in the real world. And well, no, but the problem is what you find out is an Indian is worth maybe a 20th of what an American is.
In
So
terms of
my
salary
revenue,
and-
so,
I see.
so like even now with the ad revenue, even though I get the Indian traffic, that's even not something that I want to push for because I mean the RP it is. I mean it's 20 to 1. It's ridiculous.
Do you ever ask your users to tell your cousins and friends, or do you ever try to?
Oh yeah.
And does that work?
They say it does. Yeah, well, I actually have one that was printing out flyers to hand out at his school. Well, because that's, I mean, like with the community, it's all about actually helping each other. So, like, I mean, one of my guys, Nullset Computers, he has a company somewhere in Nevada, but he does things like banner ads. And so, just being on the community, he's picked up like $250, $300 worth of work from other members. So that's what they look at. Is they say, I had a client come in with a problem. They're writing out a problem. I go, oh, it's this. they get $100, and I'm not asking them for money. So they're like, well, Eli just got me this $100, so I'll help him out.
So this is more of speaking of the quality versus the quantity. And so quantity can be overrated. That's what I said when I only see 20 people in my meetup. Well, you got any other questions?
Yeah, Eli, your Google Hangouts,
Yeah.
are you still doing those?
Yeah, that's why I do the daily show.
Yeah, and are you monetizing that in any way? Is there any way to monetize that?
The only way to well, what happens is it gets monetized post recording. So once I've done the hangout, it immediately gets encoded and thrown up onto YouTube, and then I just hit the little monetize button, and then it shows the ads through.
Can you put your own ads inside of your videos, like Mixergy, like Andrew Warner, he'll start each one out with saying like, this show is sponsored by these 3 companies. Like,
You can. The issue is, like I say, YouTube has been very good to me, and so.
Which means they can be very bad to you.
Well, but what they say is when you do the monetization, there's a little checkbox for paid placements. And so you then have to tell them you're doing paid placements. And then based on that, sometimes they'll give you less revenue.
yeah.
To me, to be honest, like I said, I used to have like a business with 9 full-time employees, and I just killed myself and sucked up the vendor, clients and all that. And right now, I can't tell you guys how easy Google is. I mean, you just paste that code or you click that box, and then they send you money.
Yeah.
And there's no like I was talking with the venture capital guy a couple weeks ago. He was giving me all these ideas about how I can make more money. Well, yeah, that's work, but that's because you have to go out and you have to get the sponsors, you have to do all that.
I guess ultimately you want to do something that you like doing, and otherwise it's not going to sustain.
So are you only interested in organically growing your subscriber base or your fan base, or are you actually trying to get more traffic to your YouTube channel?
I've tried by paying. The problem is, again, is YouTube, their whole ecosystem is just so efficient. You feel really sad after you spend $1,000 and YouTube gave you 50 times more traffic than that $1,000 gave you. So I do want to grow it. Again, I'm just not sure. Honestly, creating content is the best thing I can do.
Now that you have this great community, is there anything else you thought of doing as far as like building an app and selling it, or even an ebook or something like that? That now you got this audience that could likely buy it.
No, the only next thing that I would do, and again, depends on how much work I want to do, is I'd like to rip off Fosterley's study hall idea. So basically, and think about like franchising that. So I've got my personality, I've got the information, we've got the online community, and then turn it into an actual physical community. I would think that would be the next step, but it's work.
Would you consider taking actual consulting gigs? Somebody calls you up and says $100 if you can answer my tech question?
No, I flat refuse that.
Finish
A lot
with
more
that.
than that.
But I have to add that since you've gone from owning a shop repairing computers to this one, you've actually become a guy in an orange t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
So that's a new kind of thing that's come up, and you've been asked to go and hang out because you're cool.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that and how?
Yeah, no, I got, how they talk about paying bloggers and all that. So a company called OnSip paid for me to go up to New York, basically just say hi for 2 days. I sat there with 8 hours. I have to say, if OnSip is a really good company, they sat me there with their CTO for 8 hours to explain their entire data system. But he just fled it. Just how this works. At the end of it, I was like, well, if you guys want something, a blog post, anything? And they said, no, we just want you to know we exist.
Wow.
There's another company called CBT Nuggets I do some promotional work for. And again, they just flew me out to Oregon. And because apparently, and that's where I have to figure out where this will go monetization-wise. And once I, quote-unquote, catch somebody's eye, it was very interesting when I was out at CBT Nuggets, because they do online training, but they do it certification-based, and then you have to pay for it. But that was like their 13th instructor that they had. And they have a nice startup company there you would love. I mean, it's insane. They've got 30 people. Everybody has Macs. They have a knife throwing room. I mean, it is just so like you're just like, what?
What a basketball machine there, wow.
No, seriously, no, you walk in and there's this massive like tree stump on the wall. And then the owner like plugs in this code in this safe, it pops open, and there's every kind of throwing knife you could possibly want. But I was talking to him about it. And all the core staff are there, but none of the instructors are even in the state. They're not even, none of them are even within driving distance. I asked him, I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, why is there nobody within driving distance? And he said, curiously enough, that finding people that can explain technical concepts to the average person he said it was exceedingly difficult to do. I mean, he showed me all of his numbers and his growth, and he said the problem is finding people that can digest complicated information and then simplify it. He said was really fairly difficult. So my hope is maybe Discovery Channel is something we'll find. Maybe a Discovery Channel or something we'll find.
Next year, you're going to be famous, Mr. Parking Panda.
No, I mean, I spend too much time all over the place doing things internally for our business to worry about being famous. I mean, I've been afforded some cool opportunities, but not with like celebrities. I mean, you know, I get to meet mayors and governors and, you know, people like that, like had lunch with Gavin Newsom in San Francisco, and, you know, but generally it's all in the line of work, not all in the line of getting famous or something like that.
Give it time.
Yeah, it's interesting, I
Maybe
mean,
one
how
day.
the world evolves, and, you know, and you have to keep an open mind, basically. And who knows where things end up. When I was impressed how, you know, Nate, you're constantly communicating with your customers. I suspect, because if you ever shut down those channels, you'll suffer, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it never ends, and it's just,
Yeah, nonstop. Yeah.
any other question?
Your community, is that, use some package software to host that? or how's
Yeah, I tell everybody, if you guys want to create a community, PHP Fox, it's $300. You throw it on your server, and it is just rock solid, wonderful.
PHP Fox?
Can you give us the URLs of your websites and?
Well, if you go to EliTheComputerGuy.com, that'll point you to all of the different stuff.
Nick, regarding the private driveways and building that business a little larger, have you tried referral fees with the current driveway owners that you have?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, people aren't, I've done referral fees in a lot of businesses in the past. People are often less motivated by cash referrals than by something else that you can give them. We're not really in a position to give them an owner, like, what do we do? We can give an owner credits to then rent a space later, but that's not necessarily what they want either. $10 to get your friends to sign up doesn't feel like that much necessarily. Referrals are often best incentive when you see something like Living Social, like 3 of my friends buy it, I get mine free. Even though it may only be worth $10 or $20, there's a psychological piece about getting it free versus going through all this work and spending all this time to get $10 that makes it infinitely more effective than the other. And you know, honestly, if we're paying $10 or any more than that to get a private driveway, it's not worth it for me. It's not going to, you know, if I can pay $10 or less, that's great, but otherwise it's more cost efficient to let it grow organically while we build the commercial side of the business.
You could say as a referral, you know, for X amount of referrals, instead of giving you $10, we won't charge, you know, the fee,
Right.
you know, 2 weeks.
So we've considered things like this as well. The issue you get into is, one, I mean, we just haven't had the capacity to build something that in depth yet. And two, to put it kind of bluntly, like, people are stupid. And you need to keep things for your users as simple as possible, especially our users. Like, anyone who could drive a car, we think we're 80 doing this. And that becomes increasingly complicated. So it's like, well, you're not going to take your fee for how long? Is it a number of bookings? Do I remember that? How do I, it just becomes complicated for people.
So you don't get people who request parallel or perpendicular spaces?
You mean like street parking? Like,
Yeah, like I know a couple of people who don't do parallel parking. And I was just wondering if it shows up in.
We don't really have an issue with that. I mean, very little private parking is parallel parking. You know, anytime you parallel park, it's pretty much street parking, and we don't really deal with street parking. It's a hell of a process to go through the pilots and the RFPs and to maybe win one contract. It's big when you win it, but it's a real process.
Have you come up with any ideas on how to integrate with a company like Central Parking and how, you know, it would benefit them to use your product?
Yeah, so we work with Central Parking here in the city. It's very simple. They have a back-end management tool that allows them to list their garages, their parking spaces, the capacity, the price, when it's available, when it's not available, pricing for different hours, things like that. And then it's resold on our site. And they often view it, you know, we're viewing it as the beginning, like I said, of yield optimization, of really helping them figure out what to charge, when to charge, how much traffic to drive. For a lot of them, it's sort of marketing dollars right now. It's a company like Central Parking doesn't really have the capacity to market itself very effectively, other than people driving around and finding the garage. So incrementally, every additional car we can send them on a day that they're not full is revenue that would have been left on the table otherwise. So here in Baltimore, we work with Central Parking, PMI. We do some work on a limited basis with the Parking Authority, but again, that's an RFP situation that we're still working on. We work with Town Park, we work with Federal Parking, most of the providers in the city. It's safe goes for DC.
So our customers get a different price when they go to the central parking garage?
Sometimes. It depends. Our goal is to get them better pricing when the garage is empty. It depends on who we work with. Most of the central garages do that, actually. So on whatever days their low capacity days are, Tuesday, Saturday, whatever it is based on location, we try to get better pricing. You could pay more with us, but generally it'd be clear when you buy it, and that would be if you know, you're in DC and there's a concert at the Verizon Center. You may pay 10 or 15 bucks more, but you could show up 3 minutes before the concert starts and have a guaranteed space. So it's really about paying the appropriate price for parking more than just like a coupon code.
So I'd like to end, I mean, clearly I think going back a year and a half, you guys have come a long way, you as well. So what gems of wisdom do you give out to entrepreneurs in the audience and our friends and our millions of viewers on the YouTube channel? What take away home lessons about customers and business in general?
We do a lot to, you know, we didn't talk about it that much, but we do post-purchase surveys and first experience emails, and we user test less now than I would like to, but there were times when we did user testing every week. Tools like user testing are great in terms of time saving. I think you get more out of it when you do it yourself. We would do go-to meetings and screencast it and mark up when the most interesting things happen. But even when you can't user test, we track metrics. Not so much in terms of like how specific people are performing, but in terms of how the company is performing very closely. And we use that to guide business decisions. You know, we looked at tracking on how fast we were adding inventory and how fast we'd be able to expand and drive more traffic. And that's why we shifted into the commercial business, parking business. And then we saw increased opportunity there in terms of revenue and growth. And that's why we continued down that road. And, you know, while largely what we do is very similar to when we started, there's a lot that's different as well. The business model has refined itself quite a bit, especially on our end that you don't even see. Like, we'll eventually probably sell a SaaS solution to garages to allow them to optimize their parking across the board, not just with our reservations. We say we've built a platform API, you know, a REST API that allows people to integrate parking into their systems. Things that, you know, when we started and were a pure marketplace, we never even would have considered or thought to do. And that was all driven by user testing and sort of business metrics. So
you ignore the customer at your peril?
Excuse me?
You ignore your customer at your peril. Don't ignore your customer.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when if If you have 100 visitors a day to your site, you can't split test. It's going to be meaningless, right? You got to make decisions and not dawdle on it forever. But at the same time, like, we've very much driven our business based on the need we've seen from both sides of our dealer marketplace, from both sides of our market.
And keep an open mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eli, what have you learned last year and a half?
Last year and a half, I'd say probably in the last 6 months, that there's a huge interest for semi-two-way conversation, that people really want to talk, they want to get their ideas out, their expressions out. Like, you'll notice on my daily show, I answer questions off the whole comment list.
9 a.m. Eastern time?
9 a.m. Yeah, tomorrow I'll be on.
You're going to say nice things about us?
But it'll be like 150 to 300 comments per show, and then you see the conversations. Like, one of the problems that I have is there not always questions. Like, people actually start to have conversation amongst themselves within the feed, and so I'm trying to like sort through. And I think it's just a very interesting thing. I don't know how it'll influence the next year and a half, but I mean, it's the idea of, like I said, people is this, that people want to communicate and they want to have these conversations, but they also want it to be based around something that they're creating, you know, not just going to the bar and drinking, but the idea of coming around technology and all that. So, I mean, that's going to be my thing over the next year and a half, is how do I change the shows and the community. And, you know, if I hire an assistant, that's one of the things I'm thinking about, is like, just so they can manage a community, so that they could answer questions and have it. And actually, I mean, it's weird, but it really is part of the business thought process, is actually paying somebody to have a conversation with these people. Like, not even simply, oh, how do I set up a Samba server? But, hey, look at this stupid cartoon. And actually paying somebody to go, hey, that cartoon is funny, isn't it?
Yeah. So in one sense, I mean, as a business owner, you want to have a lot of control, but on the same hand, if you've had a lot of control, you've gotten to where you are today with things, and so you have to, I guess, we've learned to become more comfortable with the unknown and seeing what comes of it, and otherwise.
Well, that's what I mean, there is no, like, with what I'm doing, because it's a lot different than what I used to do, is that there is no control. So the idea basically is that I just promote my personality, and then I just plug my personality into whatever format works best for everybody. So like I say, right before I was doing YouTube classes, now I'm doing a YouTube show. I said, hopefully Discovery Channel comes along.
Yes. Thank you guys very much, and thank you for coming, and thank you for AOL Paris. And, I guess we'll end it. We can keep chatting and finish up the pizza. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're going to go to the parking?
Yeah.